When it comes to quality sleep, Ashley has you covered with top mattress brands at winning prices and with special financing options available. You can snooze now and pay later. Plus, your mattress purchase helps give the gift of better sleep to children in need and U.S. Special Operations Forces. Visit your local Ashley store or shop online today and make every snooze count. Financing is subject to credit approval. See store or ashley.com for details.
Rosetta Stone is the language learning program with a lasting impact. I've been using their app to learn French, and it's not just about memorizing words, but actually having real conversations. And it's not just French. They offer 25 languages. Right now, Rosetta Stone has an awesome holiday deal, 50% off their lifetime membership. Every language, unlimited access forever. For anyone keen on diving deep into a new language, check out rosettastone.com. It's a game changer.
Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me, as always, is a man who is swaying under the moonlight, this serious moonlight. Here is the Captain.
Thank you very much, Randy Macho Man Savage. It's good to be seen and good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
Today we are still drinking some Who'd Like to Hold My Clipboard Peach, brewed and canned by Hoof Hearted Brewing Company. This is a double IPA with peach puree, vanilla, and milk sugar. 3 words, D-light and full. That's delightful. Garage grade 4.25 bottle caps. And here's a big cheers to our friends that helped us out this week. First up, cheers to Ashley in Rapid City, South Dakota.
And cheers to not just another Emma, but my Emma from down under.
And cheers to Justin in Atlanta, Georgia.
And a big we like your jib to Emily in Elroy, Wisconsin.
And last but certainly not least, we have Amanda in New York and her big brother, District Attorney Tom, both longtime listeners. So cheers to you both.
Yeah, BWERUN, beer run. If you'd like to support the show and get something in return, check out our website, the store page. We have new shirts coming in almost every week at truecrimegarage.com, and that is enough of the business.
All right, everybody, gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime. We have 3 individuals in custody, 3 being charged with murder, and the police are hoping that one of them will turn on the others and talk. Now, under questioning, Captain, Brice Rhodes denied any knowledge of what had happened to Larry and Maurice. He did tell cops, after talking to them for several hours, quote, "I need a lawyer, man, if you're going to keep all in my face." Now, Taylor, the other individual in custody, also initially refused to talk and tell detectives what he knew. So police are going to turn to this Anwan Carter, the youngest of the 3, and he decides to help out, do the right thing. And he tells police exactly what happened to Maurice and Larry. Anwan said that on the night of May 21st leading into the 22nd, he and Brice Rhodes and the 2 brothers and Ja'Cory Taylor were all hanging out at Brice Rhodes' place. Now, remember, Captain, I said that it was important that Brice Rhodes' mom said she was out of town when whatever went down, went down.
Right.
Brice, as successful and famous rapper guy that he claims to be in the neighborhood, lives at home with mommy, of course.
Well, that's because he's spending too much money at the jewelry store.
That's right. So Taylor and Maurice get into a fight at Brice's place. This is what's being told to police, that Maurice pulled out a knife. Brice Rhodes hit Maurice and took the knife away. Then Anwan also maintained that Larry and Maurice had stolen some money from Brice Rhodes. All these actions leading up to their murder. Now, I want to be perfectly clear here, Captain, because it's not clear to me how much of this is true.
Right.
That there was an altercation, that these two boys stole from Brice Rhodes.
Well, also
there's a good chance that none of that's true.
It also makes it seem like they pulled a knife and then Brice took the knife away, therefore it being some kind of act of self-defense.
Right. Right, because the rest of what Anwan would tell the police is basically what you mentioned on yesterday's show, that Brice Rhodes, afraid that he's going to be implicated for murder by these two young bucks, that he decides the best way to get them not to talk is to shut them up permanently and kill them.
Yeah, and he ties them up and puts a stocking cap over their face and stabs them to death.
Yeah, and Anwan went on to tell police that he was in the passenger seat. And again, this is all because the two boys were witnesses to this Christopher Jones's murder, where Anwan says, I was in the passenger seat. Maurice, one of the young boys, was driving, and Brice Rhodes and Larry, the other murder victim, were in the back seat of this car when this shooting went down. Brice Rhodes, the one doing the shooting. So I did find a summary of what Anwan told the police. This was in the Courier Journal. And it reads, after a brief scuffle at his home on May 22nd, Brice Rhodes tied up teenage brothers Larry Ordway and Maurice Gordon, put Ordway in a bathroom, and then made Gordon get on his knees and beg for forgiveness. Maurice was crying and stuff, and he was asking everybody to spare him. Brice Rhodes then, according to Carter, put a stocking over Gordon's head, gagged him, and stabbed him in the chest several times. Then Carter said Brice Rhodes, and Ja'Cory Taylor moved Maurice's body aside and brought Ordway back into the living room. And Brice started stabbing him then at that time. After being threatened by Brice Rhodes, Carter said that he also stabbed Gordon once, and Taylor stabbed Larry Ordway. So we've seen this in other cases, Captain, right? Where you have one guy that's a particularly evil monster. Brice Rhodes comes up with this idea, this plan to kill these two kids that witnessed the murder. And not only is he going to force these other kids to help him kill these two, he's going to make them actively be a part of the murders. Here's the knife. It's your turn to stab them.
Yeah, and this is a tough situation because even if Brice leaves the room after the first stabbing takes place, what are you going to do? You're going to run away? You're going to run away and, that's what makes the most sense, you'd think. Run away. Tell the police.
Right.
Right? But in that moment, you could freeze and you might not be able to think logically about the steps that you would need to take to have the cops get this evil bastard before he gets you.
Well, and that's what you do. I mean, Brice Rhodes, that's exactly what he did. He's like, you know what? I'm going to make them, not only were they involved in the homicides, but in this situation, I'm going to make them actively stab one of the victims. So now I don't have to worry about them going out and telling other people because they were actively part of the murders. They're not going to go and seek out police and tell them about me because they know that they're just as guilty as I am because they took the action with the knife to stab these victims.
Yeah, so now not only are they afraid of you, but they're afraid of the consequences even if they go to police.
So not only did detectives learn about the murders of these two boys from Anwan Carter and some of the information about the Christopher Jones murder, but they learned something that's really interesting in the Christopher Jones murder. And this is one of there's a lot of bad parts to this story, But this is one of the worst parts. Anwan tells the cops that the whole Christopher Jones murder was a mistake. That Brice Rhodes, the genius that he is, and please hear the sarcasm in my voice, people, Brice Rhodes, moron, mistook Christopher Jones for a man that was wanted to be killed who had a price on his head.
Right.
So in all of this, Christopher Jones is just some innocent dude who happens to look like somebody that Brice Rhodes thought he was going to get paid to kill.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody to get confused here and think that, oh, Brice Rhodes is some kind of hitman that some gang or whomever desired to hire to pay to kill somebody. It's not even that level of sophistication. From my understanding, it's simply a gang put a price on some dude's head, and anybody that wanted to kill that guy could collect. Well, Brice Rhodes decides he's going to be that guy, but he's too damn dumb to do it and accidentally kills the wrong dude in the process.
Probably still try to collect the money. Hey, well, I killed a dude that looked like the dude.
Close enough.
Shouldn't I get paid something?
So the other thing, too, and this is an interesting part to the story. I don't know how much of this I believe here, Captain, but Anwan also told police that Brice Rhodes had told him that he had killed multiple other people, not just the 3 victims we've already discussed.
Oh, I'd believe it.
He says that Brice Rhodes talked about killing about 5 people, but I couldn't find anywhere where names were given to these other potential victims. It could be a situation where Anwan does not know any names, that it could be real, or it could be what I suspect is just another thing that Brice Rhodes probably lied about to the people that he knew best to create an image of himself that is just not true.
Right, or a scare tactic. Like, yeah. Man, I've killed more people than this. You think I'm afraid to kill you?
And then through all of this, police ended up rounding up another individual. This is 19-year-old Tyron Coleman, who was charged with 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of abuse of a corpse, and 1 count of tampering with physical evidence in relation to the 3 murders that we've already discussed. So obviously it didn't take investigators long to bring formal charges against Brice Rhodes after he was named by the victim's mother, and then the confession by Anwan Carter when he told police exactly what happened. They ended up searching the apartment that Brice Rhodes shared with his mother. Detectives noted immediately that the apartment had been thoroughly cleaned with bleach, but they were still able to detect blood evidence inside the apartment. They also impounded and searched his vehicle, which revealed plenty of evidence as well. Brice Rhodes was charged with 2 counts of murder and evidence tampering.
This case would be a lot more difficult if it was just he said, right?
Right.
But it's not. I mean, we have a bunch of eyewitnesses, so we have multiple people pointing the finger at Brice, but on top of that, we actually have evidence.
Mm-hmm.
We have evidence that backs up these eyewitnesses' stories, and especially the younger ones. You would think, and I'm glad that they came forward and did the right thing, because I don't think they were put in the best situation. I don't think they put themselves in the best situation, but they still have a possibility of turning things around and making something right with their life after this horrible incident.
I agree, but to say they came forward gives them far too much credit. This is they were tracked down and forced into
I agree.
Backed into a corner and then started singing. Now, what's interesting here, though, Captain, is we are currently sitting in a situation. Look, we're recording this in May. Probably won't come out till June. We're actually recording this almost 5 years to the day that these 2 young men were murdered, and a trial has been set for Brice Rhodes for the month of May of this year, 2021. And you go, holy crap, that's 5 years later, and this is a pretty quick investigation to lead to an arrest.
Yeah.
Well, Brice Rhodes has made all kinds of problems of the court proceedings in trying to convict him of 3 murders. Now, in the years since the arrest, there's been plenty of court dates and court hearings, so we have a great idea as we sit here today and discuss the case, Captain, of what police believe happened and the evidence that they have to back it up, because this thing's been in trial for quite some time. Now, they did take off about a year during the whole COVID thing, but it shouldn't be long for this guy to get a conviction, I hope. And let's go through some of the stuff that we learned throughout the court proceedings. So this is all based off of testimony that came from the Louisville Metro Police Department. Their testimony during the court proceedings with these 4 individuals that they're going to charge, because we have Brice Rhodes and we have his 3 accomplices. So they state that Brice Rhodes, Carter, and Taylor were the last 3 to see Maurice and Larry alive. The mother was able to tell the cops that her boys left with those 3 on that night, on the night that they were killed. Somehow Maurice and Larry were lured out of their homes, and according to the witnesses, Brice Rhodes had already at this point decided that he was going to kill the 2 boys to cover up killing Christopher Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Rhodes took the boys to his apartment that he shared with his mother. He and the accomplices stabbed the brothers to death before putting their bodies into a vehicle and driving them to an abandoned house in the West End. The boys were dumped in a backyard, and whomever tried to set the bodies on fire to further hide the bodies, or at least maybe
hide the evidence
and make sure that they couldn't be identified, possibly. A witness saw someone trying to start a fire. So we have an additional witness here, but it was too dark for the witness to be able to ID the person who was trying to start the fire. Investigators found blood and physical evidence inside of Brice Rhodes' apartment and vehicle. An eyewitness saw someone resembling Brice Rhodes. Look him up. He's on YouTube. He's all over the internet, and he's one ugly dude.
He's shitty looking.
Yeah, you would. You could pick him out of a lineup. He doesn't look. He's a unique ugly guy, let's say. So this eyewitness saw someone resembling Brice Rhodes, according to their testimony, standing at a dumpster engulfed in flames on May 22nd. A witness reported a license plate that matched Brice Rhodes' vehicle near the dumpster. Inside this dumpster were the burned remains of blood and trace evidence, shoes, and clothing. These items had been submitted for testing, but were believed to be clothing and other items that belonged to Maurice and Larry, our victims. One of the things found was a piece of a blanket. This is a very big piece of evidence, because we can say with this eyewitness's testimony and another witness giving the license plate of Brice Rhodes, okay, Rhodes, if you weren't connected to this murder, what were you doing at that dumpster where we found all this evidence? The key thing here is this piece of blanket, because this piece of blanket matched the same blanket that was found with the boys' bodies. Whoever put them in that blanket, tried to burn them at that abandoned lot, a piece of that blanket made its way to the dumpster where other evidence was burned and discarded of. Rhodes' car was found to be missing its back seat. A similar back seat that one would expect to find in his vehicle was found at the site of the dumpster fire. So obviously there's blood evidence on this back seat. He wants to get rid of it. He rips it out, sets it on fire, puts it in the dumpster.
Look, this guy can't do anything right. I mean, he can't.
No, he's not a sophisticated criminal.
No, he can't. He kills the wrong guy when he's trying to do a hit job. Then he kills these 2 brothers, and then he tries to discard of them and any evidence, and he can't do that correctly either. I mean, he can't rap correctly. I mean, I don't, his tattoos look like shit. I mean, it looks like literally his tattoos, like especially when his shirt's off, it looks like he had children just draw all over him. It's really bad tattoos.
Throughout this, we're going to go into some more of Brice's actions since he's been arrested and brought to trial. And we'll play some clips throughout this, but here's what Brice Rhodes has been up to. And I think pay attention, residents of the great state of Kentucky, because this has been at your expense. That's right. This all on the taxpayers in Kentucky, on your dime. In June of 2016, Brice Rhodes' court-appointed attorney, Brendan McLeod, told Rhodes he would have to withdraw from representing him, as he was friends with the victim's grandfather, and it would present a conflict of interest. Okay, this is normal stuff. This is stuff that we have seen before. So the attorney tells the judge that when he tells this to Brice Rhodes decides to spit on him.
They put him in like a Hannibal Lecter mask, which that became very popular. I know that I've seen that picture of Brice in the Hannibal Lecter mask many times and didn't know much about the case.
Yeah, so Brice Rhodes is spitting on his own attorney, who's saying, hey, I have to withdraw because there's a conflict of interest. And good for the attorney, because if, let's say, this again, Brice is too dumb to realize this. Let's say that this attorney would have presented a case to where Brice was found innocent. Well, then later, they would be able to go, wait a second, there was a problem with the trial.
Right.
We could charge this dude with something else or charge him with the same charges and try him again because of the issue with the trial. Listen to this. Not only does he spit on this guy when he says, hey, I'm going to have to back out, but he says to the attorney, you're a coward and I will see you when I get out.
Yeah.
Now, the attorney could,
sounds like a
per
threat.
Kentucky law, file assault charges against Brice Rhodes, but he, being the bigger man, being the bigger person, decided that he did not want to do that. But I think
I think the bigger person should file charges, because you just keep stacking charges against this pile of shit, because you never want to see this guy see the light of day.
Then in August 31st of the same year, Brice Rhodes attacked a fellow inmate, threatening to kill him. And the words that were heard by all was Brice Rhodes saying, kill him like he did the others.
Right.
Then in September of the same year, Rhodes spit on another inmate. So he's not even making friends inside the jail there. And then you pointed out, of course, he was supposed to wear, or made to wear, the spit mask, and was brought into court at one of the proceedings in a restraint chair.
Yeah. Now, doesn't he have another charge against him for threatening a judge?
Yes. Okay, so he threatened a judge, and I have his exact words here. He says to the judge, what, you don't think that we can't find out where you live at? I don't give a bleep. You got family. I'll be out. So threatening the judge and threatening the judge's family.
Yeah, and I just have to bring it up because his beard drives me insane. It's almost like he shaved off all his pubic hair and glued it to his face. I mean, it's the guy can't even grow a beard correctly. I mean, he's pathetic. And the judge he was threatening was a female judge, and if you get a chance to watch that clip, it's pretty hilarious because she just basically steamrolls him and goes, get out of my court.
Gives him the what for and straightens him out real quick.
No, he started talking and threatening, and she's like, okay, you're done here. We're not going to give you any more time to just sit there and talk nonsense. And what sucks about this whole case is because this guy is so arrogant, this guy is so ignorant that it's 5 years. I mean, you have a right to a speedy trial. Well, what about the victims' families? They have a right to a speedy trial as well.
Right.
And this son of a bitch just keeps delaying. Then he's delaying the inevitable. Mm-hmm. And as much as he's going to say, "But I'm going to get out. I'm going to get out. You just watch." It's like you ain't going nowhere. And I think he got beat up one time in prison. So I hope he just...
I'm surprised he hasn't got beat up more, because he's threatening other inmates, spitting on other inmates. I also have a situation here where Brice Rhodes got in trouble for throwing urine on a corrections officer. And then in January of 2017, Brice Rhodes tried to escape from the county jail by digging his way out. But the corrections officers noticed a fresh hole under some cinder blocks in his cell. He's also been going to...
Well, and his fat ass is going to have to dig a pretty big hole.
Well, and at some point too, Captain, he's also threatening the people that may testify against him. Okay, he was caught sending notes to Ja'Cory Taylor in 2017 while they're both at Metro Corrections. And on there, he's saying, rats get exposed. Show me that you're my blank and you're not a rat. It will then... So he's threatening this guy.
Yeah.
Do the right thing, buddy, and don't rat me out and you won't get hurt. You won't get killed. Rats get exposed. So what we're seeing here, Captain, is this dude is a problem. Even behind bars, he's a freaking problem.
Yeah, and again, I'll repeat, a problem for the victims' families.
In March of 2019, there were more charges thrown at Brice Rhodes for terroristic threatening and wanton endangerment. This is because Brice Rhodes told a corrections officer that he was going to shank him in the face and that he and his family would die. And it goes on and on and on. And we do have some clips that we can play so you can hear it for yourself. But if you want to really get this down to its core and what the big problem has been is we got Brice Rhodes who's trying to manipulate the system. He's trying to play the system. And he's saying things like, well, we need a change of venue. And then he's firing attorney after firing attorney. He spit on one of his own attorneys. He's threatening judges during the court proceedings. He's blowing kisses at the victim's family in the courtroom. He's doing everything he can to delay the actual murder trial against him. Why? Well, he's an asshole, number one. But two, I believe it's largely in part because they are charging him. They want to give this guy the death penalty. And in Kentucky, they don't take too long to kill those who get sentenced to death. They're
just taking a long time.
They just can't get through the trial. They can't get to the actual trial because he keeps manipulating the system. He's playing the system.
Yeah, well, right before this beer break, let's take a listen to one of these clips from Brice Rhodes acting out in the courtroom.
Your job is to do your job, not to worry about me. That's what I'm saying. Well, I worry about me. You worry about your self.
That's Brice Rhodes talking to Judge Charles Cunningham. Rhodes is accused of shooting Christopher Jones, then stabbing to death two witnesses, 14-year-old Larry Ordway and 16-year-old Maurice Gordon. Rhodes has already been through two attorneys and is now asking for his third one to be removed.
I'll just ask you, why do you keep refusing to get this man off my case when we keep having problems? Do you have something personal against me to where you don't want to remove him?
No, sir. I have something personal against not providing you effective assistance of counsel.
Judge Cunningham says he has already called the state public defender's office.
They had struggled to find someone who could represent you, and that basically Mr. Griffiths is what they've got.
Rhodes once had to wear a face mask because he spit on an attorney.
I write the Bar Association and the ACLU, you know. I write them, you know. I see what's going on, you know.
Fair enough. Let's get us a date to come back.
No. You're going to find out, though. You're going to find out real quick. Promise that.
The exchange angered the grandmother of Ordway and Gordon, who were brothers.
This is going on for 4 years, and nothing's been done.
She later apologized.
The judge he like he said, he wants everything dotted. He wants to do it everything's done the right way, regardless of what Mr. Brice Rhodes is saying in there.
But she remains frustrated.
He's just playing the system. He's playing them.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you look forward to the holidays? Maybe you struggle with seasonal blues. This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or even anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot, something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/garage today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/garage.
Rosetta Stone is the language learning program with a lasting impact. I've been using their app to learn French, and it's not just about memorizing words, but actually having real conversations. And it's not just French. They offer 25 languages. Right now, Rosetta Stone has an awesome holiday deal, 50% off their lifetime membership. Every language, unlimited access forever. For anyone keen on diving deep into a new language, check out rosettastone.com. It's a game changer.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
And it's my right to speak what I need to speak on. I don't know if y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on or what y'all got going on, but I'm definitely gonna speak my mind.
Detective Tatelli and I have no sexual relationship.
Now I'm talking about you and a prosecutor over there, sir. You denied all my motions. Every motion I filed, you didn't deny it.
I'm pretty sure I've denied the vast
Every motion I filed.
motions that have ever
Are you some type of racist? Or you y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on? Which one is it?
Or are you just wrong in everything that you've made a motion for?
Are you a secret Ku Klux Klan member?
No, sir, I'm
Is that
not.
what you really are?
Nope,
Okay.
I'm not.
But like I said, the higher courts, they'll deal with it.
Brice Rhodes might be one of the most annoying criminals that we've ever had, murderers that we've ever had on this show. Oh, you guys have some kind of sexual relation? Huh? Like his little huh and his little laugh after everything he says. Mm-hmm. Are you a secret Ku Klux Klan member? Ha 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 ha. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, and people out there in listener land, if you get some time, if you're pretending to work and the boss isn't looking, look up some pictures of the courtroom proceedings regarding Brice Rhodes and just look at the look on the face of the man and the other public defenders who have been forced to work with this guy over the years. The look on their face is always like, you're kidding me. I got assigned to defend this guy.
Right. This is my life.
This is the job that they gave me.
Yeah. Well, in the one clip when he blows kisses to the victim's mother or family member, she calls out. Court obviously says, ma'am, you can't do that. Well, you see his attorney lean over and say something to him, and then he starts brushing his shoulder like, whatever you're going to say to me, it doesn't matter to me. Again, at some point, we need to come up with some new laws. If this guy is going to be such erratic idiot, you don't have the right to a lawyer, is what they should say. He wants to fire all his lawyers? Okay, good luck with that. And every time there's an outburst in court, and every time that he's delaying it, there should be a charge. Another charge. My issue with Kentucky going after the death penalty, we obviously can tell from the last 5 years that this idiot cannot even stand a regular trial. And if you go after the death penalty, you are going to give this guy so many more opportunities to present his case in appeals, and he's going to waste so much of the system's time, effort, money. I don't know if I would go after the death penalty here because I wouldn't want to give this guy more opportunities to waste more money and more time. When we know if we get him on 3 murder charges, he's spending the rest of his life in jail. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 10 years if we go, that guy was beat to death in prison.
Yeah, I can certainly see with what you're saying and agree with most of it. I just don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we're going, okay, the consequences are less severe because the guy's a jerk. We already know that the guy's a jerk. He's on trial for multiple murders here. And I'm sure anyone can understand this next piece that we have here, because giving into the impulses and hearing about this POS Brice Rhodes and his courtroom behavior at the pre-trial hearing, Marie Wren. Now, I do want to point out that in different articles, the boy's mother has a different name from time to time. Sometimes it's Elizabeth, sometimes it's Marie. I had to pick one. That's what I went with. But the mother of the two murder victims, she lost it. She finally lost it. She lunged at Brice Rhodes, and she had to be forcibly dragged from the courtroom, and she's yelling, lock me up, lock me up. Why don't you let me at him? He's sick. And afterwards, once she had a chance to calm down, she told the news reporter, she said, I flipped out. I'm sorry. I couldn't take it anymore. He's a demon. This guy kills kids. And she says, you go to church and you try to pray and you try to forgive, but the anger builds up. And then this guy's in there behaving like a jerk. And
this guy doesn't deserve any forgiveness. And on top of that, what we've seen in 5 years is he can't handle himself at the trial. And yes, you're saying, well, the consequence would be a little less. I don't think so, because I think being beat to death in jail would be way worse than being put to death by the state. That's why I would bet so much money on this, because what is he doing? He's spitting on guards. He's throwing urine on guards. They're partly there to make sure you don't get out to harm society. That's part of the reason they're there. The other reason they're there is to protect you against the other inmates. So, look, if I'm a prison guard and you're throwing urine at me and you're spitting at me and calling me names and stuff, at some point, when are one of those guards going to look the other way? One of those guards are going to be told by another inmate, hey, we want to get to him. And they're going to let them get to him to teach him a lesson.
Well, and I don't know the circumstances of some of the information that I'm about to throw out here, but one thing that when I watch this guy, when I get built up with anger, I have to remind myself that the most recent person executed by the state of Kentucky, Marco Chapman, was executed in November of 2008 for murders that he committed in August of 2002. So 6 years and a couple months, and they killed the guy. I don't know the circumstances or everything that went on with his court proceedings and things like that, but it didn't take very long. Some of these states, it's 20, 25, 30 years. Meanwhile, while this dude is acting up and being a jerk in the courtroom, what about the other three arrested with Brice Rhodes and charged with Brice Rhodes, the co-conspirators?
Right.
Well, they all ended up pleading guilty and took some deals, and we'll go through that a little bit here. So first we had Anwan Carter, who entered a guilty plea in November of 2016 for the murders of Larry, Maurice, and Christopher Jones. And remember, he's underage at the time, Captain, so he was going to serve time in a juvenile facility until he turned 18, and then the case would be reevaluated. And what they ended up doing with him, we got an update on him just a few days ago. After he turned 18, his defense comes out and says, all right, well, he served his time as an inmate at the Kentucky Department of Juvenile Justice Facilities. We want to get probation for him. Well, the judge wasn't having any of that. And so now he's been moved to an adult facility to serve out the rest of his time. Tyron Coleman pled guilty to charges of facilitation of murder for the deaths of Maurice and Larry, as well as tampering with evidence and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. It is believed that this latter charge relates to him, Coleman, helping move the 2 boys' bodies to the backyard in that neighborhood where they were found.
Right, into the abandoned lot, yeah.
Yeah, so he pled guilty. He was not required to testify against any of the other co-defendants as part of his plea agreement, but he is getting 10 years in prison and then 15 years of supervised probation afterward. Ja'Cory Taylor, He also pled guilty, this to 3 counts of facilitation of murder and tampering with evidence. He accepted the prosecution's offer for either 10 years in prison or 20 years of probation, with the decision to be left up to the sentencing judge. This will be Judge Cunningham. At the sentencing hearing in March of 2018, Taylor's defense attorney tried to argue for leniency for Jacory because he was only 17 at the time, and pointing out that Brice Rhodes knew that, this kid's 17, he doesn't have a father, and that Brice Rhodes preyed upon other teenagers and Jacory's vulnerabilities specifically. Now, whether or not this is true, this didn't sway the judge in any way, because he ended up giving Jacory Taylor 10 years behind bars.
But like we said before, or like you said, because I kind of misspoke, the deals probably would have been different if they didn't have to come get you. If any of these individuals would have came forward before the cops were rounding them up, maybe the outcome would have been a little different for one of the minors.
Yeah, and I think that's the court's decision reflects that, right? The court's decision is what's been recommended to us, to your consequence, your penalty, your punishment, what's been recommended to us, that's what we're doing, because you didn't come forward.
Right.
You weren't the break in the case. We had to come and get you. We had to investigate. We had to find out who did this, and it was only once you were backed into a corner that you decided to talk and tell us some of the information that we needed to know. And mind you, only one of them was the first one to do so. It's not like they all started singing at the same time.
Right.
It was one of them, and then they're like, okay, well, we got this information. Now the others start to open up and then plead guilty. Marie Wren said that Jacory Taylor had lived with her and her family for a while. And so she thinks that he was probably instrumental in the ruse of picking these boys up and getting them to go out and hang out with Brice Rhodes, a man who by that time they were frightened of, they were afraid of.
You also hear in one of the clips of Brice Rhodes being interrogated saying that he dated the boys' mother at one point. I don't know if there's actually any evidence to back up that claim.
Yeah, I don't know. The only claim of that, or any piece that I've seen of that, is him stating that in that one clip. He doesn't strike me as the most truthful guy in the world, so I'm choosing not to believe Mr. Brice Rhodes there.
But you have a 14 and a 16-year-old. Let's go back to that. One, know where your kids are. Know who they're hanging out with. And these pictures, whether or not those guns are real or fake, by taking those pictures and with your kids, you're basically giving a stamp of approval that this is okay. And that leads these young kids to hang out with this monster. And look, maybe I'm crazy, but 25-year-olds never coming to pick up my 14-year-old. 25-year-olds never coming to pick up my 16-year-old. If it's not a family member, I wouldn't want my teenagers around that. They don't need to be hanging out with somebody of that age, unless it was some kind of mentor or some kind of coach or some kind of positive influence in their life, but not just some random.
Well, not only that, Brice Rhodes is a bad guy, and it's not a situation where all of a sudden the world got clued in that Brice Rhodes was a bad guy once he was arrested. No, this guy was a bad guy for a long period of time, and everybody around him knew he was a bad guy. And mom knew that her boys were hanging out with this grown man who is a terrible human being. So if people want to email and call me names and say that I'm a victim blaming, that's fine. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I see a situation where these kids were not getting they were not being raised properly, and they were not getting a support system that they should have got. Regardless of if these guns are real or not, like you said, Captain, and like I'm about to say now, it's no good, right? It's a bad situation.
But on top of that, your teenage kids, 14-year-old, that's the main thing. Your 14-year-old doesn't come home on Saturday and then you're told about what happened to him on Tuesday. Where's the call to police? Where's the call to police to say where are my kids at?
Yeah.
And this is who they left with. And I know they got that information on Tuesday, but they could have got that information Sunday morning or Saturday night. Again, 14-year-old, 16-year-old doesn't come home Saturday night. I'm putting a call in. But again, I make no bones about this. It's hard raising kids, especially if you're a single parent. And the blame doesn't just go there. The blame has to go on to these two kids' fathers that obviously weren't in the picture enough to be protecting and helping to raise these young men.
Well, yeah, and I want to be clear here. I'm not blaming the outcome on Marie or these negligent fathers. These no. The blame is Brice Rhodes and these jerks that helped him do what they were doing, and it's a all around bad situation. And I also want to be clear on something too. If you think that we're piling it on Marie or Elizabeth, whatever name it is that we should be calling her, I apologize. But if you go onto other websites and other social media outlets, this is very tame compared to what people have come at her with. And they've come at her hard with shots fired. And really, I sit here, and when we went into this case, Captain, I went into this case and I was very angry and upset with her as well in the beginning. And now as I sit in this chair and we report on this case to you, I sit here today wanting to seek out this woman and hug her and apologize to her for what has happened to her children. And I want to embrace her. And I know that this has ruined her life, regardless of if I agree with what was going on before or not. She didn't deserve any of this. Her family didn't deserve any of this. And I hope that they bring the hammer when they come after Brice Rhodes and give him the worst possible punishment that they possibly can. And I know I'm going to use some of her own words here. You know, she told one of the judges at one of these plea deals with one of these co-conspirators, she says, look, it's not fair. I'm losing 2 children at the same time. 10 years is not enough for this guy, whether he talked or not. You know, and she says the justice system needs to be changed, not just for my kids, but for everyone. And she has been out there and saying, you know, I believe that all of them should be getting life without the possibility of parole. These are persons that were involved in, and not just involved. I think that really is dumbing it down. They actively helped to kill 3 people.
No, I agree, but I think part of our show is to highlight a case and some missteps. And if you're a parent and your 14 and 16-year-old doesn't show up when they went out on a Saturday night, call police immediately. Tell police immediately who they went with. If your kids are pretending to be gangsters or pretending to be a part of negative things in society, don't put your stamp of approval on it. Tell them that is wrong. If your kids are hanging out with people 10 years older than they are, maybe put it into that. Unless it's, like I said, a coach or a mentor or somebody that you believe is a positive influence. If you think this guy's a pile of shit, don't let your kids go hang out with them. And that's all I'm saying is I think it's okay to point out some missteps here.
There's really nothing more, not a lot more that can be said about Brice Rhodes and the blight that he has put on society and the courts. So I'll let the boy's grandmother speak for me. During a hearing, the grandmother had an outburst at the courtroom as Brice Rhodes was being led away after yet another one of his delays. And she says, "This is going on 4 years," she shouted at the judge. "I'm their grandmother, and this is going on for 4 years. The judge, this is Judge Cunningham, took the time to talk to the grandmother and explain that he is being especially careful to follow protocols and protect Brice Rhodes' rights so the case can withstand being thrown out on appeal. It is, after all, a death penalty case. The grandmother apologized after the meeting with the judge, the prosecutor, and the victim's advocate, saying the judge, like he said, he wants everything dotted. He wants everything done the right way, regardless of what Mr. Brice Rhodes is saying in there. But their grandmother voiced continued frustration at the process and what she sees as rewarding Rhodes' schemes to delay and cause problems, and said, quote, "My grandchildren didn't have a chance. Everything he's saying in there, thinking he's so smart, this has got to stop. He's just playing the system. He's just playing them."
If you're looking for an old episode of True Crime Garage, they're available everywhere. On Spotify, on the Stitcher app, on the Apple Podcast app, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find our old episodes. But for our bonus show, Off the Record, that's exclusively on Stitcher Premium. So check that out. Or you could go to our website and click on the link there. Colonel, do we have any recommended reading this week?
This week I am very excited to be recommending The Son of Sam and Me, The Truth About Why I Wasn't Shot by David Berkowitz, by Son of Sam victim Carl De Niro and longtime friend of the show and prolific true crime writer Brian Whitney. In The Son of Sam and Me, shooting victim Carl De Niro reveals his search for the truth and his shocking conclusion regarding the identity of the real shooter. Check out The Son of Sam and Me by Carl De Niro and Brian Whitney. You can find that great title and many more on our recommended page at truecrimegarage.com.
And until next week,
be good, be kind, and don't litter.
You can live out your MasterChef dreams when you find a professional on Angie to tackle your dream kitchen remodel. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Inside to outside, repairs to renovations. Get started on the Angie app or visit Angie.com today. You can do this when you Angie that.